So, welcome everyone. We are here for the closing conversation of this summer's Burntsienna Calibrations cohort. So give a round of applause for our panelists tonight. Oh, come on, I can do louder than that. Come on. We'll do introductions and everything momentarily, but really just want to thank everybody for coming out here. It means something when you get an opportunity to practice in public, talking about the things that you're consistently doing in private that most people don't see. Over the past 10 weeks, we've tried to arrive at a bit more specific clarity and references so that people understand us the first time and have us way less messed up. So that's okay. So we'll walk through some of the things here. But for those that are unfamiliar, my name is Jason E.C. Wright. I am founder and director at Burntsienna Research Society. We're an institute for slow research philosophies and really trying to make sure that there's space for anyone that has a mission-driven, design-driven practice that wants to make sure that cultural reference, all of your personal stories, all of the things that drive you to do the things that you do, show up in everything that you create and put into the world. So it's very important to me. The Burntsienna Calibrations is a 10-week cohort for founders of design-led studio practices, fine art practices, and mission-driven enterprises to clarify internal values and calibrate their outputs and offerings to match, bridging the gap between what is known and what is demonstrated consistently. And we'll talk more about that this evening. But we've had about 60 plus founders participate in these cohorts since 2024. Raise your hand if you're an alumni. Shout out to that. Y'all all need to be alumni too. But this evening, this marks our 11th consecutive cohort. And we do these 4 a year, so you do the math, there we go. But this 11 is a number that's special to me. It's my birth number. It means a lot. And every cohort has its own special thing, but this was, in its way, very, I just know I can't cry now. Very meaningful. And we have Genelle here from the spring cohort who also just didn't get an opportunity to speak during the panel of that cohort, so it's good to have you here too. So we have Eniafe Isis, please raise your hand for everybody to see. Genelle Brooks-Petty, Karis McPherson, Mick Jenkins, Mikayla Rodriguez, and our friend Moritz couldn't make it tonight because him busy. He's big busy. We'll talk about him later. Does anybody have? Can you read his message to everybody? Who has the phone? And then Mick, can you pass that mic to Eniafe, please? Thank you. There we go. Pass that around, please. But Moritz, very, very heart-led. Creative entrepreneur, very, very rooted in hospitality, and we'll talk more about his practice in a bit. But he sent a message to everyone. What did he send?
He said, "Hi all, I'm really sad I can't join you tonight. I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you. These last couple of weeks have genuinely broadened my horizon and made me look at creativity and business in a whole new way. I learned so much from every single one of you. Thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. I'm truly grateful to have met you and have gone through this journey with you, and I'm excited to take everything further from here. I'm sure our paths will cross in all kinds of ways, and I'm looking forward to hanging out soon. Have an amazing night tonight, Moritz."
And just imagine that, like the warmest drum accent ever. So, we're going to get straight into all this. Each of you I've known in some capacity, whether at a distance or in person, and we all had conversations leading up to this. Many of them multiple hours, some of them 12 minutes, but because of years of knowing. And I want to start with this question. Why was this the time to participate? Like when you decided, like, you know what, I think this is the time for me to be in a space, a structure, a cohort like this. What was it about this time that made you say, you know what, F it, let's do it now? We'll start with Mikayla and we'll work our way around.
Hi, y'all. I would say now was the time for me to participate because, I don't know, I've gotten to a point with UNMET, which is the art collective that I'm the founder of and lead curator for, where I was like kind of martyrdoming, like pouring so much into UNMET and into the collective that I built to the point where it wasn't functional and successful in ways that felt like it could go long term, which is what I see for UNMET. And I was like, I know there's a lot of purpose and passion behind what I do, but how can I channel that into something that is actually helpful for everyone involved? And I feel like going through this cohort really gave me the opportunity to observe my why, the ethos behind creating UNMET, and also how I can show up for artists from a place of abundance and not from lack. Yes.
I have to follow that. It's beautiful. I think for me, I can be a bit stubborn sometimes, that there's very few people that I think that I feel like I can learn something from. And this cohort gave me the perfect opportunity to become a student again. The forever student. But I feel like not only was I surrounded by people who I could learn something from, but I think Jason provided so much instruction for the company as a whole. And I think that when I think about how it affects my business, I didn't know it going into it, but I was trying to figure out how to be of service while doing the business, and I think that it was the perfect opportunity.
I was in the spring cohort. I have my design studio, BPC Interior Design, for over 15 years. And why I started the practice is different than where I am. I'm different than who I was when I started it. And I had some team shifts that were happening, and it was a really good time because I was evaluating everything. My work and what my values are very clear in people who talk to me. I'm very transparent about the things that are important to me. But having something like the cohort, like a class that was organized in a way to help guide me or structure my reevaluation with someone who I trust, with other people who are in my cohort, who I respect for the work that they do, and ironically I knew more than half of the people just from the world that I live in. But having someone who was not in the inner workings of my business guide how I evaluated it, and having folks who really didn't know why I started, who I didn't know when I started, be able to see and know my why of how I do anything, helping me shape my communications about the thing that I do, and that's so important to me. So that was I'm also 50 this year, and so being concerned, I'm mother now moisturizer. But being concerned with legacy is something that is becoming increasingly important as the time that we have seems to be, shortening, and wanting to be sure that I'm structuring the thing in a way to where the work leaves the messages, the opportunities, and the building standing that say the things that are important to me and hopefully to my posterity.
Why now for me, I think because I had the space, mentally, emotionally, time-wise, and also the need for clarity and to reintroduce myself to myself had become blaringly loud. And I think also I needed a bridge between this idea and concept of me that has been for 41 years, and a bridge between that and where I can't yet see, but I know I have to stay in motion towards. And also, to second what you said, being able to receive this education and stewardship from someone that sees me without me having to explain was soft. It allowed for kind of a feeling of held space that I think I was also looking for too. But I think more than anything, it was the like, okay girl, what you gonna do? What you gonna do now? Kind of push, and yeah.
I truly feel that I was led to Burntsienna. I had been very recently, I'll say at the top of 2026, feeling like throughout my creative career, I've always been around people and practices that I was learning from, and I like to do that. And I definitely felt like I hit a wall with the spaces and the people that I was around of not really learning anymore, and had been actively looking for practices and people to continue to learn from. And so, upon meeting a new friend, I was suggested to the end of the last cohort, and I came here and see the variety of artists and practices that were on stage that were learning from Burntsienna. I was like, yeah, this is what I need to do. So I truly feel like I was led here. It was the perfect time.
This is fantastic to hear. And we're going to dig into all of these even more. But from an outside observer standpoint, this is the time to participate for each of you. The same answer from all of you was, because I already know the other things. What don't I know that I don't know? This is the time for me to explore that thing. And honestly, I'm ready. And there's that saying of when the student is ready, a teacher appears. And I'm really grateful to have been able to be that instructor, that teacher, that facilitator, that steward of the seeds that each of you are not just carrying, but building. The batons that each of you are building to be able to pass on. And that feels, I don't take that lightly at all. So I really appreciate being able to be part of your stories. This is fantastic because I'm a fan first of each one of you as humans. But not too many like this one. So, Eniafe, if you would like to give us a quick overview of how you would frame your practice. And what do you do?
So it could be summed up in 2 words, writer and facilitator. I was raised in Riverside County, a little town called Lake Elsinore. And reading was how I escaped what was a very racist environment where I did not experience a lot of care, a lot of warmth, a lot of love. And my mom was an avid reader, and I found solace and comfort in reading. My mom also was an avid journaler and encouraged me early on to express myself to myself via journaling. It took me a long time to get there because I think I was almost afraid to see what I would meet on the page. But eventually the page became a process of alchemy, emotional alchemy. And in fact, it was Jason who, I think upon our first meeting, referred to me as an emotional alchemist. And that's what I do with writing. It's how I make sense of the world around me. It's how I stay soft in the world around me. It's also how I invite myself and others to remain curious and stay open to the world around us. Because there's so much that we don't know. But when we cease to read, when we cease to write, when we cease to communicate with ourselves and others, that's when kind of that flow, and what is life other than this force of flow, in, out, up, down, around, this back and forth, then we die a little bit, individually, collectively. So I write, and then I facilitate writing from the lens of this is another way to meet each other and ourselves, and also in that process take what can sometimes be very hard, very complex, very complicated, very charged emotions and feelings, and we give it landscape, and we give them a place, and we soften them. And it's how I love. I love in words, so.
We talked about this quote a lot from Baldwin. It goes without saying, I believe that if we understood ourselves better, we would damage ourselves less, and by extension, others. You and I talk about the Nikki Giovanni, James Baldwin conversation all the time. It's kind of the way a lot of our conversations tend to go, and I think that one of the most admirable actions that you do is you don't run from your anger, frustration, or disappointment with people. You sit in it long enough to let it lead you back to your curiosity about like the why, like what's behind that. Why might somebody be feeling that way? Like you seek the understanding part. But you use a lot of literary references to help people find their way back to themselves or find their way to a form of critical thinking. I think about some of the workshops you've done with Black Being in different spaces, but you could talk a little bit about sites of memory specifically as one of the workshops that I was able to attend and engage with. The impetus behind that, your love for Toni Morrison, and how people left that space after the activities in there. But let's just start with the why. Why did that space matter? Why sites of memory?
So why sites of memory? Sites of memory comes from I believe it was 1987 essay written by Toni Morrison called The Site of Memory. There's a very well-known line from within this essay that goes, all water has a perfect memory. And basically what she's talking about is how there are places in Mississippi where the people that live there always talk about that the area floods. But it was in this particular area that acreage was cleared so that it could become farmland and grazing ground for cows, horses, etc. So what she was expressing in this essay is that it's not so much that it's flooding, it's that the water is returning back to its original place, and that writers are like this. We write to return back to our original place. And the whole essay is just really about how Black writers used literary archaeology to basically make sense and face and deal with historical trauma. And the essay is included in a book, one of her works of nonfiction, The Source of Self-Regard, and I started reading that in 2020. And that essay just kind of left a fingerprint on me. And as we've been moving through 2020, 2021, all of these 6 years, I returned back to literature again to help me put things in place and perspective. And I think in that way, all of us in some sense are a site of memory because we have histories within us, we have stories within us. And so every year, I always say, I'm gonna do something to commemorate Toni Morrison. I'm gonna do something to commemorate Toni Morrison. And this year I was like, okay, how many more years are you gonna hear yourself say this and not actually do it? So I had a moment of kind of a spark. I sat down at the computer, I sent an email off to Ali Simon, who is the co-founder of Black Being, and I said, I want to do a session commemorating Toni Morrison for her birthday, and we're gonna call it Sites of Memory. And we are going to talk about the Site of Memory essay. And I looked at it from the standpoint of, we are not sites to recollect our trauma. We are sites to recollect our agency and what has happened, and to remember that we are ever present in the future and we are future makers. And we have so much history that shows us not only what has been, but all of the places where possibility still lies. And it's just my way of kind of finding the gems and putting them in our hands should we want to make gemstones out of them. Because when gems are just in the ground, they look like rocks. You can almost pass them up. But when you take a gem, when you sit with it, when you polish it, when you spend time with it, when you know how to cut it, how to shape its angles, that's when its value shines through. And so that is kind of some of the background behind Sites of Memory.
You also be writing. And you be writing, and you be crying, and you be feeling.
Too much holiday.
But the thing is that you're like a professional soft life liver. And everything has this warm glow to it. It's like your life looked like it's narrated by Diana Ross. So this is amazing. I want to take this moment. Karis or Mikayla, what's something about Eniafe's practice and her person that has really resonated with you, witnessing her over these past 9-10 weeks?
I think I really connected with her vulnerability. First of all, meeting her and experiencing her writing, blown away, especially my love for literary culture in general, blown away. But then also the fact that she allowed herself, and so many of the other cohort members, they allowed themselves to be vulnerable, and then allowed me to be vulnerable. So I appreciate her for opening up that space. Because you know, us as creatives, we don't like to share our stuff with nobody, you know, so I really appreciated her for that. And then, I mean, look at this. I've lurked. No, she's extremely talented, so.
Eniafe, I would say your warmth and your ability to just communicate these emotions that we all feel collectively in a way that we didn't have words for is like a talent that I think you really brought to the cohort, because if I'm honest, I feel like you kind of helped us open up spiritually. A lot of contributions and ways of thinking about things that you shared with us, I feel like helped each of us kind of see things more raw. Yeah. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to tell Eniafe this two weeks ago, but I wonder if anyone is familiar with trying to sit with a new book or a new writer, and then you read a passage, and you throw your hands up and you close the book, and you're like, all right, well, I guess I gotta think about that for 3 weeks before I can move on. She writes with such an intention and an understanding of her own self that translates to your understanding of what she wrote and yourself. On top of that, the person that I met from the first time that I met you completely matches what I learned over the cohort. I think you are a very intentional person with how you communicate and how you deal with people. And you, first week that I met you, immediately struck me. I think there's not a lot of people that I've met in my life that I know, like I could, outside of your presence, you left something with me the first time I met you. So I think that intention rings true through all the things that you do in my experience.
And Genelle, you know this one. But from the practice, the writing practice, the showing up in the community, but just overall, how has Eniafe's existence landed with you?
I would say you're one of my new friends, even though you don't know how many years it's been. But that comes with knowing authenticity, kind of meeting each other at a time that was shaky, personally, for both of us, in different ways, and just like, being a person who will allow space for you to be you. She's one of the great ones. Jason,
I said, do you want to sit next to Genelle or not? And you was like, why not? What's the worst that can
No,
happen?
but just like having someone that you can be your full self with, the ugly parts, the shiny parts, and have equal gusto with the support. Someone I trust my children with. And yeah, I think sometimes they like you more than me. But I think this comes through in your creative practice because it was a refuge for you. You end up being that for others. And not asking for anything but honesty in return, which is rare. So when we come back to gems,
Well, we also have you next. When you see this big smiling photo right here, you might as well just keep that microphone. If you want a moment, fix yourself, fix your face.
what was the question?
Well, first of all, we're glad that you're here because you participated in the cohort previously. But you're someone that, again, similar, like, new within the past 5, 7, who knows at this point. It's just like, you know, right, exactly. Like, some people have fast friends. This is like a fast family, for real. And it was important to me, as well as I know to Eniafe, and as you all will find out, for you to get up here and talk your talk. And so, I know many people know you through All Chill. So let's start here, and give us the rundown. Basically give us the TikTok version of this LA Times article. But just like who you are, a little bit about All Chill, your history, South LA, being a woman of the world.
Yes, kind contrary to the tears that come from people I actually care about, I'm a thug.
Y'all laughing, she's serious. Real serious.
And you have to be, because I'm from England, USA, meaning I was born and my family lived in Leimert Park at that time. Shortly after I moved to New Orleans, my mother and father were in college, actually in Baton Rouge, but New Orleans was the base. I went to high school in Chicago, South Side. I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I lived in Brooklyn. So when I say I'm from England, USA, that means I've experienced a lot of it. But also juxtaposed with the fact that I'm a fifth generation Black college graduate. And my care for Black people and other marginalized people is cellular. All Chill is something that was built, I'll say, I got my keys in 2020 to the location. But it was a response to issues of equity and land use. I live in Leimert Park when my husband and I decided to buy our home. We were very interested in living in a place that was a community. I love the houses in Hancock Park, but I just didn't see me flowing there. And I was pregnant when we were looking, and I wanted my children to feel love from every inch of where they were in ways that I could see and ways that I couldn't. Like I did when I was a kid, growing up on Edgehill and 39th with my family having 3 houses, and with my grandmother, my aunt and uncle, my great aunt and great uncle, and my great grandmother's sister living on the block that I live now, 4th generation Leimert Park resident. Left, come back, left, come back. And there's just something there that I feel like is worth preserving and building upon. So I moved my design studio from 3rd and Fairfax to Leimert Park, and made everybody come to Leimert to work. And going from wanting to make pretty spaces a little further back, I worked in fashion. So pretty outfits to caring about how people feel with their armor. So I was a storyteller in fashion. I work with celebrities who often have a lot of issues, and the armor is how they get through. And that was my job, is to tell the story they wanted to tell through their clothes. I'm buckling the shoe of a notable and thinking, this can't be my life. There was, I'll say, a lack of stickiness in that industry, and a lack of impact. It was very personal in ways that I didn't think could last. You're only as good as the last look and what the papers say about it, and you're too concerned with what other people think, and it never really penetrates who the person is. And I believe, I had a friend who had a shoe store. She made custom shoes, and she said, hey, I know you're into architecture. Can you do my store? Well, I don't do that. I like read about it. It's different. And she said, no, you got this. You got this. So this is friends having faith in your abilities, and me just, walking through that door and saying, well, my great-grandpa was a graduate of Howard University as well, class of 1935 architecture. My father was a graduate 1977 Southern University interior design. I am just the dream of her. Me being able to do this because my homegirl asked me is just the dream of her. And so I said, sure, I'll do it. And I did her store, and wanting to be good at what I do and feeling like the people who work with me deserve the best of me, and the best of the thing, even if it's not me, I went and got a master's in interior architecture to be able to practice interior design. So I'm not a pillow fluffer, I am a person who is trained in structures. I do know what's inside the walls, and there is a reason for every thing, every decision, every paint color to the 1/8 of an inch of the spaces that I work in. Sometimes 16th. But a very detailed and intimate approach to how I build spaces. So initially it's like, how does an environment impact a person's life? Like, if your room is clean, you feel better. Your bed is made and the things. When you walk in your house, do you go right or left and why? These are things that I evaluate and things that I cared about. I was a kid who made Barbie worlds and who made candy wrappers into pillows and stuff for the Barbies and changed my actual room or my half of it or my third of it, I was saying, at different times when I shared with sisters. So this was something that was always kind of in me. Get my master's, work with a designer who's doing all custom, luxury, residential, occasionally hotels, and kind of really cool stuff. But she just did it because it was pretty. And that felt hollow and not aligned with who I was as a person who cared about community and having my family and community and knowing my neighbor and helping, somebody across the street and taking their trash cans in, and just more than making it pretty, because we deserve it, as our community deserves it. So the store went well, master's went well, worked with another designer. By the time I finished grad school, I had enough people asking me to do the thing, to put a shingle out. And so I've had the studio ever since that time. Going from having a practice where I made, pretty things, the thing was, this family is having a designer for the first time ever, and I want this to be wonderful for them and their children. They're starting a family, or they're, starting anew after a divorce, or whatever the case might be. This needs to be great for them. And then seeing that there were bigger ways to impact, I got involved with organizations that I thought collective action could be impactful. 2% of architects in America are Black, and it has been that way for 50 plus years. There are reasons for that. So getting into design and committing to it and committing to being really good at it was in honor of those people, including my great-grandfather, who could not provide for his family in the world of architecture. Also, it made it more important for me to introduce and make accessible the work that I do. And that means, how do I make people's lives easier and better through working on their businesses and making those places suitable for selling the thing that they sell, or whatever it is their small business is. How can I make it affordable for them and still eat? How can I help them make their life better? How can I help them kind of understand that they are grabbing a baton that they are now responsible for carrying someone else in the community into the next phase of things. So moving my studio to Leimert Park, living in Leimert Park, moving my studio to Leimert Park, being involved with organizations that care about communities that are largely underserved by the AEC, or architecture, engineering, and construction industries, led me to the knowledge that there were 10,000 units of housing being built in the Crenshaw corridor. And I said, who are these people? We've been here. We're already here. And what does this feel like with this new wave of people? And I sat with this and I talked to my husband about it and said, well, we gotta be involved in the commercial corridors, because that's the part that we leave to do everything. Like, we leave to go to eat. We leave to go get ice cream. I had, two children, now 11 and 13, but they were, half of that when we started this thing. And I said, so I want to build something that is a connection point between the old and the new community, that is a clear reflection of Black and brown culture, and a meeting place in the community that's multi-generational. And like, how do I find this thing that's a fit for everybody? And ice cream was my answer. It is way more accessible than design and architecture. And I've had my design studio, like I said, almost 16 years. I've had, but in the world, I am the ice cream lady, and that's okay. I still have the design studio. I still work with small businesses. Some of my neighbors are people that I work with as far as helping them build their second stores or moving into bigger spaces or helping them reorganize the spaces that they have. I get to work on projects that are impactful, and essentially I say that design is my tool, but we build community through design. And All Chill is really just one of those examples of how we can hold safe space for Black folks and brown folks and other people who care to visit, but tell our stories through culinary traditions and the actual imagery and things that are in the space. It gives me a different platform for speaking to people because I understand their needs differently as a business owner, as a resident. Ice cream makes people trust me. It's been very strange. My political connections deepened because of it. It is the strangest thing in the world to me that I can spend so much of people, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of people's money to rebuild their homes, their businesses, their things. But this $5 product is why I'm here and have value in so many more people's lives.
Now, let's not act like you didn't carry over your to the 16th of an inch in design into, girl, you don't use just any milk.
No.
You don't use just any sugar. You have
A2 organic.
Like, you and your friend casually having an architectural chocolate business. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all are wild. So, like, it's not.
I'm a serial entrepreneur too. That's agency. And
100%.
that goes into everything that I do. And I hope to be an example of agency among women, Black people, people of color, marginalized folks. In whatever I do, I'm 100% me, you get it, how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that that helps the folks who work with me, the people who witness it in one form or another. My sisters and I, we talk about just like, what do you want people to know at the funeral, right? We're like, I said, first of all, don't have a AI plugger for my memorial. I want it to look like a kinfolk magazine, and I want it to be very clear that my life is about inspiring and empowering people to have their own agency, and that's something that I think All Chill represents. I think that's something my design studio represents, and
also you teaching.
Yeah.
Even though program.
My program did get sunset, but my kids are still come and hang out at the ice cream shop and talk and ask me all the things.
But I think that there's something to be said about being the force behind the scenes and having a place where people can find you.
That brick and
impactful
mortar.
and not hiding.
No, I'm not hiding.
Yeah.
The brick and mortar, again, I think gives a different level of accessibility. Like, people will show up and just demand to see me. Which is wild because I'm being myself all the time. I don't want to talk all the time, and I'm clear with that. Like, I'll wave from a distance, or we'll have an hour, we'll sit down and have a random hours-long conversation that meanders. No, but I'm also a person who is like, yes, I own a business, but I will clean the toilets, right? And there's, I think, a sensibility of we're in this together. I had a staffer who was giving a presentation to one of, we're going to be possessing my clients, who said "I" the whole time, as if I don't pay. And I thought that was strange because I have to monitor all his work. And he thought he did it by himself. I don't have a culture of I in any of my businesses unless we cross a line, right? And I want people to understand that we are in this together because it's not about slinging ice cream scoops. It's about building community. If that's design, if that's, ice cream stream, if that's the next thing that I think of and decide to rabbit hole on. It's always about building community and helping people, bridging, being a bridge for people to get to their things, or having kids see themselves in different places, or the opportunities that they have, or I have probably 22 of them now, nieces and nephews. And I had one who told me he wanted to do a program, but he didn't think he could do it because it was expensive. It was just ridiculous.
And what did you say?
I said, that's not your concern, right? Like, at the end of the day, we get it done. That's just kind of what the thing is. But I realize more and more in our communities that we have people, adults, friends, who put limitations on themselves, and that is the heartbreak for me. So me jumping, off cliffs conceptually, maybe occasionally, actually, is hopefully having people, build gumption within themselves and know that, there's actually somebody who's super accessible. If she can do this, I can do this for sure.
I mean, I think that's the bridging of the possibility model is really important, but also, let's keep it real. If you can do it, somebody else can try, but there are some things that only specifically you can do because of the resiliency and reference points that you had. But in building those bridges, in having reference points, in creating a space for a very specific activity that could be life-saving, it's kind of what Karis does. You want to feed out some of that slack, Nick? Thank you. Talking to the professional microphone handlers. There we go. Karis, I'd love for you to talk a little bit specifically about however much you want to share about how books really became this life raft, this lifeboat, this lighthouse for you. Because I feel like that lays the bedrock for anyone to understand, like, all the things that you built in the space you made for people, but it really does start with not just books and objects, but the act of reading itself. So bring us into that story.
So I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Midwest. But I had the very unique opportunity to live with family overseas. So I've lived in 7 countries, most of which being Italy. I speak multiple languages. And I have a background in fashion, like others on the panel. And I've worked for brands like Max Mara, like Valentino, over in Italy. And also I've worked as stylist for movie sets. I was also at one point a person when American celebrities would come over to Italy and they would be doing their movie. I would be the person, that interpreter, and showing them around the fun things to do. And for a while, I thought that fashion was going to be the thing. But then you realize, working with certain designers, that pretty much what you're doing is you're just helping push their vision forward. And you may not see eye to eye on those things. So then I went to culinary school, and I decided I wanted to be a chef. And that was the dream. And so when I came over to the Americas, the States, and I decided I was going to stay here after meeting my amazing husband, I decided I was going to open up all of these culinary businesses, and we were active everywhere from Malibu to Beverly Hills. Food was the passion. It was the thing that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life doing. But I think if there's something you should know about chefs is they don't have a lot of time for family. And I had already had a young child, a son, who was very young at the time, and I was working 80-hour work weeks. And You know, my family would tell you I was planning a life that I was going to spend away from home 90% of the time. Very ambitious in that sense, and I think that traveling, my sense of perfection, I think it all caught up with me at a certain point. And when I say caught up with me, it caught up with me hard. I ended up severely ill and bedridden, suddenly sick. I'm talking about I had just had, my daughter was 1 year old. I was out here training for the Los Angeles Marathon and breastfeeding, and I said, like, this is what the type of life I was used to until I wasn't. So I collapsed at home 4 days after the Los Angeles Marathon and ended up in the hospital for quite a long time with doctors unable to figure out what was wrong with me other than you're healthy. We don't know. And that led me on this journey of, okay, doctors can't figure out what was wrong with me. I had every condition you can think of. My body was deteriorating, it was shutting down. And for the first time in my life, I had to stop and think about what was all of this for? And it's such a hard reality. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But what it did for me was, in the midst of all of this healing, one, you realize your circle of friends and the people you're surrounded by, are they really your friends? I realized I had friendships that were there because of the social setting. These are friends I would go out and hang out with to the bar. I had my friends where these are friends I would go running with, and I had friends, and we have kids, and so our kids would go out. But when you really need people, and you realize maybe you called them more than they called you, and if you're no longer showing up to those things, I think what I realized is I didn't have the discernment that I thought I had. And so family became the thing that I had been running from for so long. Being bedridden for 2 years can do some really, really interesting things to you. And I think for me, because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, because for the first time in my life I was trapped in the four walls of my room, I seeked out books. Books became my escape and also my cure. While I was bedridden, I decided to go to medical school because if the doctors can't figure out what's wrong with me, I sure as hell was gonna figure it out. And I did. I went to the University of Michigan online and I took every possible class I could, even electives. And then I started going into that doctor's office and being like, so, what does my CBC say? And they could not, what medical school did you go to exactly? And what you realize is that when they say everything looks normal, honey, it's normal for sick people. It's not normal for health. It's not normal for wealth. It's not normal for someone that wants to thrive at life. And once I was able to read those books and figure out not only what was wrong with me physically, but it also helped my spirit, it helped me emotionally. And then once I got to the point where I was mobile, I was able to drive again, I was able to start doing things normal again. Now I was reading books for exploration, for creativity again. And when it came down to me trying to figure out how I was gonna use the time in my life differently, because I couldn't go at it the same way, I talked to God, and I decided that I wanted to give others what books had given to me. And that's what led me to this journey on the literary arts. And so, goodness, I'm one of those people who believes in real world and real life conversations. I dislike the internet with a passion, even though it's necessary. I think that speaking to somebody in person is the only genuine way to really know who they are. So what I started doing was I started getting up and going to those events and meeting the writers behind some of my favorite stories and the things that kept me going. And then I decided, seeing this environment, you realize, wow, these writers don't have a lot of support. So I used to do photography back in the day too. So I was like, let me bring my camera and start photographing these moments. Let me archive these moments. I don't know how many of you remember Essalon. When SON shut down in 2020, it was the most heartbreaking thing for so many reasons, but one of the most important reasons was when they decided to go out of business, they cleared their social media feed, all of the photos erased, gone. And I mean, so many amazing people have went there. Barack Obama will come in town, he went there. Of course, Bill Clinton, you had presidential figures, you had historical figures, all gone. And this was so heartbreaking to me, and I said, first of all, Black authors and our stories are already so rarely told. You don't get any marketing for it. There's those newspapers writing about it. And I said, well, I could be that person. I could be the one that's going to show up. I can be the one that's going to take those pictures, and then I can circulate those to media to see if they would be interested in running a story on those things. So that's what I started doing. Some of the photos you see here. And what is accumulated now is I have an archive of hundreds of thousands of photos from so many amazing writers, and I'm sort of like the person they call if they're going on tour and they say, hey, can you be there, which is great. Also, that's led into book festivals. We try and host an annual book festival every year. Our book festival features all Black writers from all over the world, and coming from all over the world, every genre, every modality, every age group is super important to me. A lot of people don't realize that the literary space in general is super segregated. You have your mystery writers over here, your literary fiction, romance, and they do not commingle, which is so weird to me. Like, we're all writers, we're all trying to, well, I think we're all going in for the same goal. Why are we already separating ourselves? Like, the world is gonna do that for you. And so it kind of gets me in a lot of trouble because, you know, there's cliques and a lot of people want you to stay in the box. I refuse. Listen, I was bedridden. Ain't nobody gonna keep me in no four walls anymore. And so we do that festival. We didn't host it this year because we couldn't get funding, but next year hopefully we'll be back. Then we've been doing that for like 3 years now. And then in addition to that, you see the book talk and screening events that Mr. Jason was a part. He's a moderator for this amazing book that we did. So we're doing a lot of things in the literary space. I always say that my business, if I were to sum it up, it is the study of literary culture as a whole. And how does that show up and exist in life? I think that I'm so passionate about literature that I want people to have several touch points for it. So whether that touch point is fashion, is it music, is it food, I want people to understand that you're living your lives in story. Whether you're listening to a podcast, story. You listen to your homegirl tell you what happened, story. You know, the way you dress, people see you before you speak, story. You're already living your lives in story. Now, come and build with other people, like-minded people, and that's how I got here. So that's the passion, that's the goal.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that. Yeah, round of applause for that. That's a story about arriving to stories. That's a real thing. But also, you make it look real good. Talk to us briefly about Thank You for Reading, because it looks like if you are a literary bug but like to travel and find different places to hide and read but be comfortable and chic at the same time, nailed it. So what is Thank You for Reading, and why does it make you so excited?
This is funny. My husband always says I'm always adding new brands to the foundation brand. So I'll be like, Thank You for Reading is a companion brand to my other org. No, but seriously. Thank You for Reading is a design studio that explores and studies literary culture. Through, as you can see, apparel, fragrances, and collaborations, we hope to connect with international tourists seeking souvenirs as appreciation. And so I'm trying to change the way that people think about literature as a whole. And some of these things you can see on the wall, like this is our mascot, and it's covering my lovely son, who's the model, space, because I want everyone to see themselves in it. just as I explained to you earlier, there's story in everyday life. I want everyone to feel like they can be a part of story, and because of that, you can wear the clothing, you can wear the fragrances, you can participate in the culture, even though you haven't read a physical book. If you're listening to audiobooks, that counts. Yeah, so it's trying to be inclusive. Yeah, it makes me happy. I'm quite proud of it, but it's very much inspired by street culture as well. The background in fashion. I mean, I would give me some oversized Japanese denim any day.
Yeah, we see them.
Oh, goodness, that's
better.
Yeah, those are my pants. We're gonna be launching, so Thank You for Reading has not launched yet. I'm always wearing them close to see how people respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think before you put in any big bulk orders, see what people are gravitating towards, and then produce that. And then see who actually pays the price for the item.
It is a whole thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like existing in story and then taking that into a real world experience, a impactful experience, to go from the conceptual part to the live part, I think Liv does a real great job of that. We gonna get these segues. Get these segues. The interesting thing is, Mick and I actually have the same first name. He just has a way cooler nickname than I do. But my introduction to this brother was with this. And every project since has peeled deeper into audio examples of what you actually care about and how deep your character is committed to bringing that to life. But I wanted to tee up the conversation that we had about the through line of everything you have been, but how that informs where you want to go, and kind of lining up with like, not why this was the time, but why this made sense because of all of the other shifts and decisions and choices that you've made. But like, how do we get from this Mick to this Mick to where we're going next?
I make music. I'm a recording artist. The last 10 years of making music has, just being in the music industry in general, has kind of made me have a strong desire to change how people value music and then just art in general, how we engage with it. As a whole, I think I saw a lot of examples of how people kind of devalue rap and what I do, even more than making music. My true first love is writing, and I put that level of intention into my music. That frustration led me to starting a creative space in 2019 called We Space, more focused on the we, the community of enjoying, engaging, and learning from art.
And where was that again?
It was called We Space.
Where was it?
In Chicago.
Pilsen?
Yeah, Pilsen. Yeah.
Like somewhere around here? Okay. I just want to try and picture it. That's all. Okay.
Yeah. I did that summer of 2019. Unfortunately, COVID stopped group gatherings, so the entire We Space had to shut down. It is through this cohort that I was able to develop what will be the relaunch of We Space as Project Pollen, which to me is more of a creative campus where focused for Chicago youth artists and creatives, where they can kind of expand their practice and their worldview through the things that I really am interested in. Writing workshops, film screenings and discussions, and then just through my own connections, being able to have a visiting lecture series. We Space was a proof of concept, and Burntsienna has helped me develop that into not just at the whim of my desires, and put a lot of structure and business ideas and brick and mortar to that. All that comes from a deep care about how we understand, learn from, and engage with Black art. And that came from watching a lot of white people handle my music the wrong way, honestly.
We also talk about your fondness for great conversations, great debates, historical conversations, but also a love for design, you know what I mean, and also foundational, Chicago programs that are no longer around for any number of reasons. So the care that you have as an incidental steward, right, and as a product of that, where does that care about that intellectual rigor, about those debates, about that expansiveness? Like, I know why it matters, but for you, like, why does that matter? Why is that important? Especially having a space for those types of discourses to happen. Why do you watch and revisit those types of conversations? Like, what is your hope for the world or for the community through that?
I've always been a heavily visual learner, experiential learner, hands-on conversations, watching people do it, asking questions while they do it. All of that helps me learn the best. I'm very focused on becoming a better man, becoming a better human, becoming a better artist, challenging myself. I truly believe that those are the best ways to do that with art, right? I think we even used the Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin conversation earlier. I love that conversation because I think they were voraciously arguing the way one should, and at the same time learning from each other's perspectives. I think they were masterful in that during that whole conversation. I think that is what I hope to foster with Project Pollen. I think that engaging with concepts and art in such an intentional way, through such depth of conversation, I think really helps expand people's understanding. I think using that as an example, they were probing each other with the questions, and the first answer wasn't enough. I think that is something that I've learned a lot of the time will help you get to the center of the Tootsie Pop, for lack of better phrasing. I think it's what I've done in my own practice with music and writing that has helped me get to the depth of why I wrote this chorus, or why I wrote this verse, or why I told this story this way, asking myself, where did this come from? Where did these emotions start from? Asking myself about albums that I love, who has just got 2012, one of my favorite albums, and asking myself questions about the themes in the music that I was listening to when I was 13 years old, became very important for me to foster for people to help understand my music and my artistry. I truly believe that engaging with art at that level of attention, hearing 5 other people's opinions in a deep conversation about it, will bring you to places, even if you don't agree, that help you understand the fullness of a thing. My wife can absolutely get annoyed with me entertaining all sides of an issue, all sides of an argument, and not only sticking to the one that I believe in. Even if the other side might be morally wrong or even bankrupt, it's like, but why? How did these people get to this perspective? I think that depthness of questioning or research truly helps you understand, which in turn to me truly helps you value what you're experiencing, what you're listening to, what you're looking at, art in general.
And it feels like the equivalent of, we talk about culinary practices, right? And having absolute taste and understanding how if you know the taste of each element on a sandwich, then you can appreciate it as a whole. Or if you can identify the individual instruments playing in the symphony, then you can have a deeper, so each deeper understanding individually almost sets you up to have an even more gratifying experience. Talk a little bit more about why that matters to you, the way people listen to music, especially in the listening sessions you've been wanting to develop and that you've been doing about like, let's just get people here and really break down like, but what are you hearing, why, and all that. Like, what does that give to you, like fulfillment within you?
Me and Morgan, Karis and Helen were just talking about the idea of once you make art and put it out in the world, it's not yours anymore. I believe that, but I also rail against it at the same time. I do think I put too much intention into what I do for it to be as wrong as people be sometimes in the interpretation of it. And so one of my solutions was to have these very intimate listening sessions. I tried it with 50 people, I tried it with 20 people. I ended up resting at 10 because it was a small enough number for me to be able to give everybody the attention that they deserve. They usually run about 3 hours. I have 10 people come in my studio space, and we'll listen to my latest release one time through without any interruptions. After that, I open the floor for them to ask questions about concepts or instrumentals or why I did this or why I did that. It usually ends up with some very thoughtful conversations, and I think what led me there was kind of being, yes, frustrated with people's interpretations, but also looking for how do I continue to express why this is valuable. I think there is a lot of art that if you don't digest it the way that I do, general public can just kind of be whatever about it. If it impacts you in that way, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And instead of me complaining about it, finding different ways to display that value and the intention is something I enjoy. I also just like to talk a lot, which is why I write. And so I've learned, even from them, it's been an exchange. That intention and that value can be translated through this process. That's why I've done that. I think I started off saying, well, I'm going to show them and I'm going to tell them, right? And I kind of relaxed in my emotions and my intentions for it, and realized, oh wow, I've created something really beautiful about how we can share this music and how we can continue to share this music. It becomes a marketing campaign in and of itself, even though that wasn't the intention. I asked the listeners, would you do it under these circumstances? Would you listen to this? And so I've even shared with friends that it becomes a way for you to translate and display any form of art, right? I'll talk to some friends who paint. It's just like, what would it look like for you to, near completion of the piece, have people come in and ask questions and talk to them about why you chose this palette or why you're choosing these brushstrokes, or even why this was the canvas, or why this material is where you decided to do this. If that's not something that you want to do with exposing your practice, cool, but if it is, and it's just something you simply haven't thought about, it provides a very intimate space for people to start understanding where the value or how valuable your art truly is. And I'm always looking for opportunities to do that, because I think just offering it up for whatever interpretation isn't enough for me.
We've talked about this before, about if you consider yourself to be a unique offering, or at least a unique synthesis of things, then you have to accompany it with care instruction. You can't wash a silk shirt like socks. It's not going to turn out good for everybody. But it's interesting that you arrived at 10 as far as the number of people. It's something that even in this practice of like, what's the right number for the class size to be able to have the rapport that's needed. But it's also like, again, you want people to be invited into the way you think about it. When we first met, we were talking about like, I kind of want to write a book that goes deeper than Genius, maybe even like a Decoded, because like, man, y'all really don't be hearing what I'm saying. It's like, but then by the time that you've explained that, you're like, okay, but now I'm bored, I want to go on to something else, but I still want to bring people with me. And I think that that is the purpose of the education within the arts, not from an educator standpoint, although I am on the rapper to teacher pipeline, because I'm definitely trying to get all of y'all to start teaching. But it's also just the idea of how many artists are creating these stories, and they're still unmet.
That might have been the best one.
So I'm like, all right for a second. I don't feel really good. But it's also because, as our headliner, I had a similar level of conversation about artistic story when I first encountered Mikayla. Had some art pieces inside of a restaurant downtown called Joyce, like, elevated southern cooking. It's great. And then I get like a Gagosian Presents level conversation. And I was there like, I didn't pay for the drummers. I don't know if I can afford this conversation. Like, she was breaking down so many things about the artist, but it wasn't just what was being shared, it was the level of care. And I'd like to open this last segment with, how did you arrive to this deep level of care for making sure that the stories don't remain hidden with the artists that you serve?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. I think it really starts with how I arrived at the art industry in general. I started out kind of like a lot of you guys in the fashion industry as well. And I thought I was going to be a designer. I'd always kind of had a lot of my inspirations derived from art. And even when I was a little bit younger, went through this really big like feminist phase, where I did a lot of philosophical research and artistic research, and I was just noticing that like, who are these people? I don't see myself in any of them. There weren't a lot of perspectives and stories and parts of our lives that I felt like I needed words for and experiences to be, just like shown and explored in a larger way. And so I went through school, I got into the industry. 3 months in, something in my spirit was just like, do an exhibition. I was like, what? Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do that. And I kept talking about it to a good friend of mine, Destiny, actually. And she was like, girl, put it on the calendar. Let's just sit down, try to figure this out. And so we did. We sat down, had a 3-hour-long meeting. Both of us, no experience in the art world whatsoever. She was coming from more like the PR world. And it was just this really insane, intense thing that we had 2 months to execute on. And I cried the day of, the days before, it's a really difficult thing to put on an exhibition. But when the moment arrived, and the art at that time was mine. When the moment arrived, the conversations that were held in that room, how everyone kind of left feeling like they had met different versions of themselves through experiencing UNMET. I was like, I think this is something God put on me to do for a reason. And the more I did it, I think at that point, it was about 3 years ago, I now done like 15 exhibitions and different versions of collaborations with different organizations organizations, galleries, and each time I think I arrive at this deeper level of why. And where I'm at right now is artists just create sometimes. They don't know why, they don't know their why either. They don't know, that this color is a representation of their grandma's kitchen, or like, it's like they do these things automatic, you know what I'm trying to say? They automate, yes. And so my curiosity being met with their practice is something that I kind of bring to studio visits and conversations with them, and that really just guides my curatorial practice. Just like really being curious about them and their process and how deep that runs for them, even in ways that maybe they don't know yet.
And I really love the fact that you really are like, one of my guiding compasses is I'm from the South, and so y'all finna get this work. And that's one of the things that came up with the Ashley Cole show, but also you were not playing. There were billboards going on, and there was music happening around it. Like, you made sure that there were so many sticky points around it that if you didn't get it by the color, you were going to get it by the food. And if you didn't get it through the food, you were going to get it through the music. And if you didn't get it through the music, you were at least going to get it through being in the space. But even the touches of having the fake stained glass, you know, that was my thing. I was like, wow, that. And tying the things together. How does the way that you were raised and the spaces you were raised in, how did that almost like train your eye for, here's how to find the little things that are going to matter in a big way?
Wow. So I would say, like, there's a lot of creative energy that exists within my family, but no one is an artist. We come from, like, everyone's pretty much coming from the military or something in the medical fields, but we all kind of have a affinity for like fashion and textiles. My grandma's house, for example, is like a museum in its own right. She has a lot of like almost archival pieces from the family, just kind of like displayed throughout her home. The different embellishments that create a Southern home, the laces and the decorative frames, like all of these different elements are things that I grew up feeling warmth from. And I think just kind of going into artistic spaces and not seeing that, it was something that I was like, I need to bring that here. Because that's home for me, and I'm sure it's home for a lot of us. And I don't want us to feel like we're in like a white wall, like cube, or, you know, there's no life to this exhibition or this curated experience. I want everything that UNMET meets to feel like that version of home that is rooted in everything that I do.
And so you bring that to the community aspect of it, like you're bringing people together that are meeting one another, but then you have these wonderful conversations with artists that sometimes are even kind of like reintroducing themselves back to themselves. Like I know Todd is just newly into seeing himself as an artist, but through the conversation you all had literally right downstairs about his practice gave him a new prescription to see himself through. What do you hope for the artists that get featured through anything that UNMET touches? What do you hope that they take away? And then what do you hope that anyone attending and being in a space that UNMET creates, what do you hope that they walk away with?
I make it a mission for artists to leave working with us feeling like, I don't know, like they are held, they are cared for, their stories are important, and while we may not be the only space that provides them with opportunities, we are a space that is intentional down to the detail. If there's drinks available, we make sure that the menu is tailored to a specific element of their work, or choosing napkins that complement the colors in their pieces, to the very finite detail. We make sure that our artists are seen and taken care of, and so I hope to continue to give that feeling to any artists that we work with. And then I would say people who are experiencing the artists that we work with in the spaces that they experience them in, they walk away feeling even more curious about art, of course, in the ways that we've exhibited the works, but also just when they go to another space, think about how something could exist somewhere else, or why certain choices were made by whatever artist. I really just want people to leave feeling even more curious about themselves and about art in general, and how they also exist within that ecosystem.
And it feels like a running thread through everybody is, I think we all have the thing in common of wanting to ask better questions, not just more questions, but finding the better quality question and getting to that. It's been one of the coolest things to witness in this time. And since Moritz isn't here, Moritz is founder of Just for the Record. This, y'all have no idea, this is wildly underselling the place. It's amazing. But the thing that we love about Moritz is the level of hospitality and care that he brings into the spaces is its own magic in a real way. We're a little short on time, but I'm going to tell a quick story that the way I was introduced to Moritz was through one of our alumni. So if you see this face right here, those eyes took these pictures, and Moritz made the studio space to showcase the artwork of a friend and collaborator who's right there in the back. Raise your hand, Gabby. Gabby Lamb was spring of 24?
Yeah.
Sure. And one of my favorite photographs, personally, period, of all the images I've seen, it's in my top 10 favorite, is Buenas Mamas, which is a picture of her grandmother's hands with some amazing jewelry, and it's such an indicative of her care and lineage and fashion sense and attention to stewarding and protecting community spaces. And so to have people like Moritz that do the same thing but create this world for artists to feel seen and protected in, again, all the through lines, they just kind of stay resonant. And I think that that's something that all of us have in common. I had a good opportunity to moderate a conversation, and that was my first time meeting Moritz, and I remember leaving thinking, me and this guy have to be friends, and everybody needs to hire Gabby Lamb for whatever storytelling they think that they should be doing visually, period. And I'm seriously, I mean that, y'all need to talk to her before she leaves. But what I do want is I want to leave everyone in the cohort with a couple questions to consider for yourselves. Looking back on the cohort, what are you proudest of? What did you discover that surprised you? So really just kind of think about that. But more importantly, I want to give everybody an opportunity to share how we can follow and advocate for whatever happens next, even if what's next is what you've already seen. Maybe it's not a big what's next, maybe it's a what's now. But how can people find and follow you? Is it signing up for a newsletter? Is it a website? But just one address that people can come to.
Wait, should we answer the other questions?
No, that was for them.
Well,
How can people find you, pass on your work, share what you do? Like, what's a website, or where can people find you?
I would say you can find us at unmet.us on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, internet.
Brand consistency.
Exactly. And what's next? We have a few things. One, a benefit concert coming up this Saturday, 12 to 5, in support of me going away for a couple years for my master's.
Where are you going away to?
London, yeah, Central St. Martin's. Really, really excited. It's a exhibition studies program. Just getting to do what I do at a deeper level. So yeah, a lot of my really good friends are on the decks and performing. So I'm super excited about that. That same day, later in the day, from 6 to 10, we're also, I'm also helping a friend of mine, Stephanie Bell, who's here actually. She's the founder of Beauty and Bloom. We are doing a portrait party where you guys can come and get some professional photos taken, which is also another form of fundraiser for our upcoming exhibition in October. Yeah.
So all of that they can find at unmet.us.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Karis.
So, I haven't launched yet, but you can find, and I will post updates on Litlyverse. It's Littly verse on all platforms. And I'm not one to be transactional. I think that if you like what we're doing, then show up. Just show up and come enjoy and join community, right? But come join some like-minded people. Share it with a friend. If you know of a dope writer or author or a book that we should be featured, let us know. And also invite us to your events. If you're having conversations, if you're doing something that involves storytelling, please invite us. I'd love to support you as well. So,
Genelle?
Easiest way to find me is All Chill Inc. INC. That's, people find me there for design, people find me there for complaints, questions, whatever.
And they can find you there for ice cream.
Ice cream too. Ice cream is good, but that's just kind of
All right.
You can find me at eniafeisis.com, and Eniafe is E like elephant, N like Nancy, I, A, F like Frank, E, Isis, ISIS.com. And I will give Jason another little hoot. How I help people remember my name is Michael Jackson, Smooth Criminal. He says, Annie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? That is how I invite, or any given Sunday. So eniafeisis.com, and it's the same on Instagram.
He always laughs.
Can never hear this woman say
Spell
that.
it.
I know.
I'm Mick Jenkins, MICK, on all platforms. That's on my socials as well. I have recently gone direct to fan, so I don't. My newest music is always streaming way after I've actually released it. If you want to be up to date with my newest music, you could just go to mickjenkins.co. Yeah.
Burntsienna.org. Burntsienna Research Society on the Instagrams. Consider what you will do with your Wednesdays now. You've protected this time. What are you going to do with it now? And how will you pay this time forward? Even if it's to yourself. So, One last round of applause for our panel, and this is our summer cohort conversation. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm gonna stop these videos real quick, and then we'll get into the housekeeping, and then we're done. Yes. What happened? Oh, you have to talk to people outside. Real quick before I get into the housekeeping part, if anybody has questions, feel free to talk to everybody. I really want people to feel like you can have conversations, but I really want to use this as a space to offer the idea first and then allow space for it. It's not because I don't want y'all questions to be heard, but I also want to be mindful of people that have to get like to their kids, or it's a school night, so there's that. But I want to say, Mikayla, trust your taste and trust your intuition the first time, and then listen. Karis, you don't have to earn your existence. You can just be. And also what you do is fire. We're already here. Genelle, you're not doing too much. Go after all of that and as well. It's not that you're doing too much. You've just achieved a whole lot, but you have an empty wish list you need to fill with new ambitious things and knock those off. Go get it. Go get it. And like I said, whatever you need. Eniafe, publish the book. That's it. That's the tweet. Mick, you are who you've always been. Period. You are who you've always been. Only you can give yourself the permission. But you are exactly who you are who you think you are. And I hope that you have enough shiny mirrors to see that. This talk is brought to you by MEADOW. That is the name of the space we are in. This is a co-working space here in Highland Park. It's actually really fantastic. I know it's hot in here because this is an old church, but it's hot in here because it was an old church. This is one of two spaces. You can get a membership for this space or for the space over on Figueroa, across from the laundry room. You can also do day passes, so you can book a day pass. It's just MEADOWHLP.com. I'll have a slide with all the links later. But yeah, you need a reason to come out to Highland Park, or if you need a place to actually do some head down work that has a printer and a library and snacks, this is a good spot. And also, like, there's tons of great food to eat around here. Like, Highland Park is legit. So definitely, they've been supporting us for the past 2 years. And we have a really great relationship with them. And the way I like to show up for a lot of my friendships, business and otherwise, is wherever I can be the first dollar in, I try to be. We still support them in the same way, but giving us the space after hours and things of that nature within that scope is still very kind. So I appreciate them for being that. And I like the space. I've been around since it opened up, and it actually does the thing that most spaces say that they're doing. We are, thanks to some very gentle bullying, this was going to be the last cohort, but apparently it's not. So we are open for registration for the autumn cohort. Starts September 14th. Wednesday, September 16th is when it starts. Advanced registration is open now through the end of August. If you're interested or curious, come and see me, or just go and sign up. We do have tuition assistance, we have payment plans, we do have a select number of scholarships, but Get it how you live, but commit to it. If you've been through it, you know what it means to commit to 10 weeks with other people. It's invaluable. But if you really got it like that, or you know somebody else has got it like that, put something on the books. Consider supporting our scholarship fund. We are at 1% of our goal for the next year. In fairness, we just started 2 months ago. So, if you have anyone that works at nonprofit orgs, if there are grants that we should be applying for, or just people that need to write off anywhere from $3,500 to $35,000, we will send them the form. We have a fiscal sponsor. This is through Give Butter. This can be tax deductible. Send the resources our way because we know what to do with it. We're going to make space for people to be able to go through this and then be able to impact their communities. That's what this is for. It's to make sure that it's accessible while we keep our lights on. So all that information is right here. If you want to visit MEADOW, MEADOWHLP.com. If you'd like to register, Burntsienna.org/calibrations. And if you want to support, givebutter.com/Burntsienna. So come up here, take a picture of it, share it with somebody. But hey, we are here to keep doing this work and make the space so that we can keep having conversations like this. Because this is how we change the world, one small business at a time. All right, we got the space for another 35 minutes, so feel free to mingle, talk. I'm gonna turn the music back on. Push your chairs in when you leave, throw your trash away, like y'all got home training. Y'all know what to do. But thank you for coming out. One more time, a round of applause for our panel.